Hey guys, welcome back, it's Ripe again. In today's video, my wife and I were high school sweethearts, however, she ended up betraying me after I fell into a coma. My wife did the unthinkable and I taught her a lesson. Here is what happened, let's dive right into the story. And the first one starts like this. It's hard to be the father sometimes, all the focus is always on the mother, and the father is left in the back in the shadows, forced to accept his lot in life. It can be heartbreaking when a devoted father is taken away from his children because priority is always given to the mother, no matter how bad the mother is. Not that the mother of my children was all that bad to begin with, we were young, in love, and thought that we could be together forever, nothing could break us apart. We were the perfect young couple. Things started to take a turn when we graduated college and she didn't get the marks she wanted, which meant she didn't get the job she wanted, and instead of working harder to achieve her goals, she went the complete opposite direction. I did not mind so much, I was happy to play the cliché part of the breadwinner, and in my job prospects were always good so long as you worked hard and proved yourself. After a few years I was earning a decent enough wage that my wife did not have to work anymore if she didn't want to, and she never wanted to anyway. So anyway, time went by and we found ourselves in the position of wanting to start a family. She was desperate for it and I heartily agreed. I was excited to have a little miniature version of myself running around. The thought of being a father was an exciting prospect. Well then, several years later we had 2 children, a boy and a girl, the perfect family, but things were far from perfect. However, I did my best to move on from it and worked really hard in keeping my family happy and provided for. What I did not know was all the things my wife was doing while I was away at work. At this point, she had not cheated on me yet, not that I found out anyway, but I did notice that I would come home to find my wife had done a lot of day drinking and smoking. We were casual smokers, maybe once in the evening, once the children were all in bed, but when I realized I spoke to my wife about it, we had a responsibility towards the children. Her excuse was that they were away at school all day, so what was the problem? I tried to help her to get to work, but she would never last longer than a year or 2 before getting fired or quitting because of some rather tenuous reason. I even tried to encourage her to try again for her degree, but I think the point of no return was past. She was still pretty good with the children though, she would not drink and smoke to the point of being completely inebriated or forgetting the children at the supermarket or anything, but it was reaching that point of being concerning. That was until the fateful day when a lorry lost control and plowed through the intersection. I was lucky to come away from it with my life, but I did end up in a coma for a few weeks. When I finally came out of it, things were worse than ever. I remember opening my eyes to see my wife and I thought I was looking at some stranger off the street. Someone had dragged a woman from the local crack den and said it was my wife. It had only been a few weeks, but my wife was a mess. Obviously, she was not gonna look dinner party ready, her husband was in a terrible accident and had no idea when I was gonna snap out of a coma, if at all, but now that I was back in the land of the living, we could get things back on track, right? Well, after a few days of therapy and ensuring there was no permanent brain damage, I was ready to go back home to my family. From then on, I decided that I was going to go into freelance and work from home. It had nothing to do with not wanting to drive again, but more to do with wanting to be at home with my family and being there to get everything back on track. But that was when weird things started to happen. My wife calmed down on the day drinking, though she was still a little too fond of drugs. Nothing heavy, mostly weed out the back garden when the kids are at school, but that was not the weird thing. Her behavior towards me staying home was. She would get incredibly defensive when I said I was gonna be working from home from now on, and she would make every excuse to leave the house. She would be gone for hours, and when she came back she would be pretty high and more often than not a little drunk. Once, while she was away, some guy knocks on my door asking for my wife. When I tell him she's not there, he asks me if I can sort him out an eighth. I tell him to F off and never come around my house again, or I will call the cops. So then my wife gets home, obviously this guy has told her about what happened and she gets all crappy at me for telling her mates to F off. Then one day, the worst thing in the world for a husband to find out happens. She had gone out and left her phone behind. I thought it was my phone when a message comes through, and when I check, the notification comes up with the first line of the message. "Hey babe, you coming around? I'm hornier than." I stare at the phone, my mind desperately trying to make the message sound like anything other than what it seemed. I unlock her phone and come to find hundreds of messages from all these guys describing in disturbing detail about all the things they wanted to do to my wife. There were also several messages asking for her to sort them out drugs as well. There are pictures too, mostly of her around people's houses partying up in the middle of the day. These pictures were pretty damning. I confront her when she gets back home and we have a huge argument. It lasts for hours, so long that I'm having to get my parents to look after the kids for a couple days while I sorted this out. For a long time now, she had been working as a professional escort, which was why she was always drinking. She tried to play it off like she had not been sleeping with all the men of the state. Only about 30 dedicated individuals since I was put in a coma. Now, I'm not one to dictate to someone what they do with their life or their body. I like to think that I'm free-spirited and open to modern views, but this was ridiculous and it was getting worse. I tried to make her see that she was losing control and she was walking around looking like a crackhead. In the end, we got divorced, but the whole process was a complete mess. She was demanding that she should have custody of the children, with the basis being that she is their mother and that children should always be with their mom. It looked like the courts were going to side with her on this little sexist fact, but I was not just gonna roll over and let my children be raised by a woman like this. I fought hard and the fight was long. It takes nearly everything from me, but I found an ace. A picture from her phone. I remember of someone taking a picture of her, weed out on the table getting weighed up, and one of our children in the background, playing on her Switch. The court is outraged, her phone is seized, and they discover a whole heap of incriminating pictures and evidence. It was only that one picture of her dealing drugs in front of our kids, but it was enough to grant me custody of our children and get her locked away for a few years and must go to AAA and drug counseling. I cannot help but feel a little relief that she is finally getting the help that she has needed for so long. The last time I went to take the kids to see her, she looked to be doing very well and she has finally started working towards the degree she had missed out on all those years ago. I cannot help but feel that if I had pushed her a little harder, would she have gotten that degree and not slipped down this path to begin with? And yeah, ripe stars, let me know in the comments whether you also at least occasionally enjoy these relationship stories, because I think every now and then they are interesting, although I would not read them daily. Either way, the next one is a neighbor revenge story. So my neighbor threw his dog poop over my fence the other day. When I went over to sell him eggs, I noticed. I was pissed but didn't say anything. He texts me right after and says, "Sorry, I won't throw poop over your fence again." I reply, "Okay." I was willing to let it go. That was 2 days ago. On our way out today, I see dog poop on the road, in front of our gate. And just all over the place, really. So when we get home, I go out and pick it up and start dumping it in front of his gate. After a bit, he comes out. I tell him, "Man, don't throw your dog poop on the road." To which he says, "Well, you don't have to put it in front of my gate." I say, "Well, where do you want me to put it? I'm not putting it on someone else's property. I don't want to see it when I drive out. I mow this grass in front of yours and the other neighbors to protect from fires, and I don't want to step in it. It's your crap. You've got 10 acres. Throw it there somewhere." He asks, "Well, what do you do with yours?" Well, I pick it up and put it in a bucket. When the bucket is full, I bag it and throw it away. He says, "Oh, that's what you do with it?" Yeah, it is. Then he just walks away. I picked up dog crap for 10 more minutes or so and pick up the crap he threw over my fence and dumped it in a pile back over his. It was a lot of crap, it wasn't just a few days worth. I sell this dude pasture-raised eggs for $5 a dozen. With our garden in swing, I've been giving him squash and tomatoes for free. When he needs help, I come over. He pays me, but for little things I wouldn't ask, but like I spent 6 hours on my tractor cleaning his cow pasture that he hadn't cleaned in 2 years. Hell, even when the person he lives with had their alarms going off, I called and checked on her, and then I got them fixed. I try to be a good neighbor. I'm on 20 acres, he's on 10, the dude is 70, so was I too petty? Should I have spoken to him first? And yeah, ripe stars, let me know in the comments what you think about this story. Do you think that OP was too harsh or not? Either way, the next one is a story about a Walmart Karen. I have encountered a Karen as a kid once and one who was harassing someone else, but until today, never one of my own as an adult. So after fighting with disability for 15 years, I finally got my mobility scooter. It's been a godsend and the freedom is a wonder, but as I'm sure we all learned from Reddit, these things are a Karen magnet. And I learned it firsthand today and only on my 5th time out on it. So first, quick background here. I live in Surrey, BC, and my local Walmart has precisely 0 courtesy scooters for customers. They had 4, but all were either stolen or broken, so I'm at Walmart today just looking for a snack when suddenly I'm on the floor. It took me a moment to realize what had happened as I saw a woman, I'm guessing in her late 40s, taking my bags off of my scooter. "What the hell are you doing?" I shouted. She sneers at me and replies that she is taking the store scooter because fat lazy losers like me don't need it. She was of course perfectly able-bodied. Luckily, I've read enough Karen stories by now to know that if she was stupid enough to mistake a brand new mobility scooter with my name on it for one of those cheap grey scooters with the huge shopping baskets on it, there was really no point in even trying to reason with her. So I just shouted, "Security!" at the top of my lungs as she went wide-eyed and tried to get on it and drive away. Luckily, some staff were nearby, plus this Walmart had put up railings so that the only way to exit the store was to pass through the registers. So she had no real way to escape the store. The staff that were helping me up called security, and of course they caught her. She kept insisting it was the store scooter, that I did not need it, yada yada yada. I pointed out where my name and number were engraved on it, but she stuck to her guns. Police were called, and after reviewing security footage, it was clear she had flat out assaulted me to get me off the scooter and was on the camera entering the store from the mall entrance. She was of course arrested. And I got the customary gift card they always give victims of Karens and a quick story to tell. Luckily, I think the worst I got from the fall was a bruised hip and a wrist pain. Not the craziest story this sub ever had, but still thought I would share while it was fresh in my mind. Update: spoke to an RCMP officer this morning, and because they have the store security footage, I can avoid having to come to court for her assault charges if I write out a victim impact statement. Basically, she's being charged with assault along with the theft of a $2,000 charge. US equivalent is grand larceny, I believe. Also, please stop telling me to sue or lie to police about my injuries. This is Canada. For one, we are not lawsuit happy up here, and secondly, since I'm not seriously injured, odds are the most I would be awarded is maybe 100 to 200 Canadian dollars. It's just not worth the physical stress it would cause the disabled woman in the mobility scooter. And the next one is titled Dealing with a Karen. Apparently at 50 years old I have 0 Fs left to give and all my chill has evaporated. So I was in line at the drive-thru of national coffee chain. The drive-thru was one where you had to turn left from the parking lot to get into it, so drivers were lining up and leaving a space was left for cars turning into the parking lot. It was a long line and it was apparent to anyone who was not an asshat that all of us were waiting to turn into the drive-thru lane. I was behind one vehicle with its left turn signal on, clearly waiting for traffic to pull ahead so they could pull into the drive-thru line. I also had my left signal on. Many cars behind us, like at least 7. A chick pulls into the entrance of the parking lot, turns on her right blinker, and is apparently convinced that she's just cutting in front of all of us. Dude ahead of me turns and I pull forward. She inches forward to get into the line ahead of me. Oh hell no, I've been here for 15 minutes already, have not been properly caffeinated, and I'm not equipped to deal with foolishness this early in the morning. I pull my mask down and just shake my head and very obviously mouth no over and over. The line inches forward, I start the turn, I see her start to turn as well and roll down my window and just yell no like she's a toddler. If you saw the Boo Boo Jeffries sketch on SNL, think that except far less patient. I then proceed to turn into the drive-thru. She waited a moment and then pulled in behind all the other cars. No cheering, no parades, but a small feeling of satisfaction. And the next one is an Am I the A-hole story. My husband and I have hired a nanny back in August to care for our kids while we are working. The kids are on a weird schedule at school where they don't attend every day or all day, so we hired a full-time nanny called Marie. We liked Marie despite some issues with her following guidelines we had discussed when we hired her. She let the kids have way too much screen time, she spent more time on her phone than with the kids, and she would make messes and let the kids make messes, and she wouldn't clean up after them. And she even had friends over without letting us know. She let the kids pick out on junk food instead of feeding them real food. All of this had been discussed when we hired her, and we saw it all when we reviewed our security cam footage, so we sat her down about 3 different times and gave her official warnings each time. She would improve for a while each time, but go back to the way she had been before. 3 days Marie called out, said she was really sick, so I told her to get better and I would call out from work to be with the kids. So basically, I'm in the middle of a big project at work and people not coming hurt everyone, but I'm a mom first and I don't expect Marie to take care of the kids if she feels sick, so I called out. The next day it was really hot out and the local water park is running an off-season special with cheap tickets, so I took the kids and after a while we ran into Marie with a group of her friends. I really couldn't say anything except I hoped she was feeling better. Marie started to apologize and told me that her best friend had gotten tickets to the park and she wanted to go and she didn't think that I would would have given her the day off. I told her I would have if only she had told me the truth. I explained to her that she had lied to me and made me call out at a time that was really inconvenient, and if she had just told me the truth, then I would have understood and I would have been happy to give her the day off and call out myself. It's the fact that she lied to me that is what upset me. I added the lie to her other warnings and decided she was not worth keeping employed. My husband and I pay well above market rate and we provide everything. All she needed to do was take care of the kids and follow the few rules that we set. I took her aside and really quietly and as kindly as possible explained this to her and told her that I would pay her for the whole week, but she was fired. Marie started crying and her friends figured out what was happening. They called me a witch, a Karen, a monster, and my kids got upset, so I took them and left. Marie has been blowing my phone up with apologies and begging for another chance. Some of my friends say I should have given her another chance and that firing her was an overreaction. So, was I an a-hole? Edit, Marie is not some teenager, she is a 26-year-old woman with a degree in early childhood education and some other certifications and licenses related to the field. She's had one previous long-term nannying job, classroom experience, and she has several younger siblings and relatives and an extensive babysitting career. All of this I verified along with a good review from her former position. I had no reason to suspect that she was less than she presented. Comment number 1, not the a-hole, but extremely inappropriate to fire her whilst out at the park. Should have waited until the next day to talk with her or called her later that evening. Comment number 2, not the a-hole. The stuff you mention is enough cause to fire her alone. Most business places have a 3 write-ups and you're fired policy. She has gone beyond that by lying to you about being sick so she wouldn't have to work, and she got caught red-handed. She'd be fired by anyone else for this no matter what field she worked in. And yeah, ripe stars, let me know in the comments what you think about this. Do you think OP acted like the a-hole here or not? The next one is titled, Your problem will be resolved quickly. I work as an engineer and my job is split between 2 responsibilities. Number 1, pre-plan future work. Number 2, resolve various deficiencies during work execution that mechanics bring to me. The problem may be due to unsatisfactory material, incompetence or bad engineering. 90% of the time the solutions to the deficiencies are simple clarifications. The component is positioned in this manner. Or, did you read the notes engineering has provided you? My 2 co-workers and I are part of a satellite office right by the worksite. We have a great working relationship with the usual mechanics. We normally go out of our way to help them succeed since they actually turn the wrenches to get the job done. But then there is Kennedy. He is an underachiever who will try to find every little mistake on our paper in an attempt to kill the job and get paid to sit around while engineering fixes the errors found. Once he said that our wording was confusing, we said, install the component. I digress. One beautiful rainy day, Kennedy comes into our office and says he needs me to go look at the job site. Supposedly, there is something wrong and they cannot fix the issue. I dutifully don my PPA and rain suit and go to the job site. After spending 20 minutes getting soaked looking for an issue, Kennedy tells me that he was joking and just wanted to get the engineers off of their ass in their dry office and enjoy the weather. 2 weeks later, Kennedy looks visibly shaken up. Apparently, his job-killing ways have made it up to management and they issued him a final warning to get the work done and stop wasting money through inaction. They assigned him to a simple task which would take the better part of a shift. The task is simple and completed frequently. Historically, no deficiencies are reported when accomplishing this particular task, but the karma train pulled into the station something fierce. The tool required to accomplish the task is missing and he needs to report to engineering that he needs a replacement. He comes into the office asking for a miracle and I tell him that per our operations manual we can take up to 3 days to resolve his issue. Since it was a Thursday, he would have to wait till closing of business Tuesday for an official resolution. Little did he know that a replacement tool was in our office and had he asked nicely, we would have straight away given it to him. And with this, we have reached the end of the video. However, if you cannot get enough of my content, please check out my endless playlist where you can find thousands of hours of content. In addition, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel to not miss any of my daily uploads. Thank you so much in advance and I hope to see you again tomorrow.